Stop 9:29. Right, I have 9:30. I'll convene the meeting today. Today is July 5. It is 9:30. We have our first Tuesday morning meeting of the month. Roll call, please, for attendance.
Here.
Here.
Here, we do have a quorum. Please rise for the pledge. Thank you. Are there any agenda deletions or corrections? Seeing none, first up is the consent agenda. The consent agenda, under the consent agenda, all items listed here will be enacted by one motion. A, I have a claims figure in the amount of $564,000, $564,271.10 with no fringes. B, meeting minutes to approve. June 10, 2022 special meeting, June 14, 2022 special meeting closed, June 14, 2022 special meeting, canvass of primary election. D, June 14, 2022 work session. E, June 17, 2022 special meeting. F, June 21, 2022 board meeting. G, June 24, 2022 board work session. C, approve payroll removal, Corbin Boot, seasonal conservation aid, effective 6/24/2022. D, approve 6-month wage increase, Joshua Willett, maintenance, effective 6/22/2022. E, approve job classification change, Grace Thompson, home care aide, health services, effective June 27, 2022. F, approved job classification change, Andrea Semple, second deputy treasurer's office, effective July 1, 2022. G, approved job classification change, Christina Matthews from dispatch to jail assistant, sheriff's office, effective July 3, 2022. H, approved new hire, Rachel Ransom, clerk, recorder's office, effective July 5, 2022. I, approve vacation payout request for Tammy Jorgensen, nutrition, effective July 15, 2022. J, approve vacation accrual for Megan Miner, budget director, retroactive 4/27/2022. K, approve Class C native wine permit for Two Saints Winery. And L, approve Class B liquor license for Something Borrowed. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Number 2 on our agenda is a public hearing to begin at 9:35. I have 9:33. So let's skip down to number 5. We have a short agenda today. This one won't take too long, I don't think. So number 5 is receive and file reports. I'll make a motion to receive and file the Veterans Affairs report.
Second.
Is there any discussion from the board? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's number 5. And number 4 is consideration to open union negotiations for Sheriff's Department with possible action. Good morning, Joe.
this morning. Over the last couple weeks, I've been speaking with some employees at the sheriff's office and the union representative, and they have asked that I come before the board and request that our contract, as you guys are aware, is due this year. Negotiations should start here in a few months for a new contract. Given the recent rise in everything, they've asked if we can start negotiations early. Initially, this was going to be a request for the jail staff. We have several counties around us that I've obtained current pay grades for their jail staff that they start at. And these are counties that we're comparable to, Jasper, Madison, Marion. They all start a couple dollars ahead of where we are. But it didn't make much sense, given our timing in the year, to open the contract, if the board would consider that, to open the contract just for that, to turn around and open the contract for the entire contract. So in speaking with some of the union stewards and the union rep and some of the union members, they've asked that I come and ask the board if they would consider or be open to starting negotiations early in hopes of expediting the process of a new contract, which is due this year anyway. So that's my request to the board.
Okay. Does our legal team have an opinion on starting the process early or not?
I think so.
Is it your recommendation to start it early?
I would ask that we do. We have had our jail staff not having a jail. I understand it. I think they were kind of I want to say on the back burner, but definitely not discussed as a proper division the last contract. But we didn't have a jail. With our jail being open now, and the fact that we do have some other agencies that are still looking for jail staff, and they pay more than we do. And at the end of the day, I think that needs to be considered for the jail staff. So that's where I think trying to take this step will show them that we're doing what we think is right by them. So
Okay.
if the board would consider it, I can pass that on to the union rep if the board would wish, or I can let someone from the board reach out, however you guys would choose to handle that.
Yeah, I'm fine with starting the negotiations in advance. So I don't have an issue with it. I don't believe that we need a resolution on that, other than maybe just hear from the board. If the board's okay with starting early, I am. I think my colleagues are too, but if that's the case, then I would convey to them that we would be open to start the negotiation process sooner rather than later. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion to open up union negotiations for the sheriff's department.
Second?
Any discussion from the board? Roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, board.
Okay, now I have 9:37, so we're going to skip back to number 2, which is a public hearing for Somerset Estates LLC, Jesse Rognes, regarding rezoning from A1 to RR1 for land located at 15101 Fairfax Street, Indianola, Iowa, 50125. I will make a motion to go into public hearing.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, we are in public hearing. Good morning, Lindsay.
Morning. I am, as the zoning director, I'm going to let Miranda, the new zoning administrator, do the presentation for you. So,
Okay, thank you.
Morning.
Good morning,
Morning.
Miranda.
Jesse Rognes, Somerset Estates LLC, would like to rezone a portion of Somerset Winery from A1 to RR1 for the purpose of residential properties. They wish to leave a portion of the winery zoned as A1 and the remainder of the parcel to RR1 for a 19-lot subdivision. They've held a neighborhood meeting to discuss their plans, recommend the applicants visit with the engineer regarding the thoughts on the road leading in and out as they are planning to pave 150th, or if they have any, or if they plan to leave it as blacktop. The Warren County Zoning Commission held their first public hearing on May 9th. Our office presented the facts and finding report. The zoning commission tabled the public hearing as they were requesting more evidence from environmental health and the engineer's office. Motion was made by Rooney to table the rezoning request until further evidence has been provided. Seconded by Laxton. A roll call was taken. Laxton, aye. Meadows, nay. Ominous, aye. Rooney, aye. Kane, aye. On June 14th, 2022, the commission reconvened a public hearing asking for more evidence from the staff. Our office stated that there is no additional information to be provided at this time, as this is a rezoning for the property. A motion was made by Laxton to recommend approval for the proposed rezoning from A1 to R1, seconded by Kane. Laxton, aye. Ominous, nay. Kane, nay. The recommendation is coming to you as a denial, as there was only 3 members present at the meeting.
Okay, we are in public hearing, so I would welcome comments and discussion from any members of the public, whether here or online or wanting to phone in. I just would respectfully ask that you state your name and your address and who you're with as well. Thank you.
Good morning, Wally Pelds Design Services, 2323 Dixon Street, Des Moines, Iowa, 50316. I am the representative engineer for Jesse Rognes LLC for the Somerset Winery. I can walk you through a brief process of this project. This is a 65-acre project. We are looking to do 19 residential lots on about 42.9 acres. So that works out to about 2.25 acre density, which complies with the zoning that we're asking for in our concept. I will additionally be passing out a document that we have sent to a concerned neighbor where we had discussions after the denial at the Planning and Zoning Commission about providing buffer to the south. Their residence is to the south. It's the Cordham residence. They're roughly 2.5 football fields south of where the closest home would be, but they were concerned with visibility. There is also on that closest lot about a 30-foot grade change between their home, so it's roughly 700-800 feet, right? But there is that grade change. So I'm anticipating they would be able to see one rooftop if we did nothing. So what we propose to do, and I'll hand these out to you if I may. Do you need one for the official record? Yes, that would be fantastic. What you can see is that in our zoning process, we start out with concepts. The red line that you will see in the lighter color, and then the black lines is the place we have landed right now. And again, these are subject to change as we go through the development process. But first rendition had the street looping all the way through, making a loop through street. After visiting the site with our client and recognizing there's some century oaks out there, there's other trees that we want to protect, that we want to do a conservation design concept. Additionally, keeping 50 feet of the rear of these lots within an easement that requires that if the homeowner takes any trees down, or let's say a tree gets ill, they would have to replace it with 2 additional trees. I mean, that's planned in our plan. Additionally, we're looking not to do septic systems. Septic systems take space. They require destruction of the surface, especially in this area, which is wooded, where we're looking to do a centralized treatment plant, basically collecting as if it was within the city, like have a sewer line, go to a centralized treatment plant. We have multiple systems approved within the state through the DNR for this project. We also use them for KOAs. We are a consultant to a couple of KOA owners where this system works really well. And I will tell you that RV parks are very abusive on a septic system. Thirdly, a question was brought up about the grades. If you will notice, our alignments have changed and followed more of a ridge line. So instead of doing the loop and going through steep grades, it has flattened out, narrowing the impact again within that treed area. These will be private streets. It's anticipated to have a homeowners association, so it should not have an effect on the county's responsibility. It'll be the responsibility of the homeowners association to plow it, maintain the road, make sure that it stays in good condition, or at least to the satisfaction of the homeowners. So it should not be a burden in that. Additionally, there were some technical questions that we were asked that we answered at the Planning and Zoning Commission, whether the road system serving this area has the capacity. My response was a 2-lane road has at a minimum a capacity of 1,200 vehicles per hour in each direction. And our project will not produce that. With 19 lots, you're expected to have 2.26 trips per day for a single-family residential household. If you add teenage drivers, other things, that jumps up to about 3 trips per day. So you're talking a total of, I've got to do my math now, 19 times 2, 57, right? So 57 trips in and out is what would be anticipated. Again, these are trip generation models put together by the Federal Highway Commission on how impactful that would be. So we do not believe that 60 or less trips per day would have an impact on the roadway system that can handle 1,200 vehicles per hour at its capacity. Beyond that, we're truly looking to do a conservation design, and after our conversations with the Quortums, after that meeting, we proposed to put berming. So as you can see on this map, a 6 to 8 foot berm where you see the pinkish and the purple print, that's pretty dark. There's a slightly lighter green color where we propose to do a 6 to 8 foot landscape berm to create the buffer between the winery and the development. And then there is a large tree grove that we propose to put in a protection easement. And we would like to offer, instead of just our zoning request, to put a friendly amendment to include a buffer to the south. That way, because the Quortums weren't sure how they could enforce it, right? We can say what we say at these commissions, but if we don't do it, the zoning change becomes ordinance, if I'm not practicing law, by the way. I was just letting the attorney know. It's my understanding that if we make this self-imposed restriction, it becomes a part of the ordinance, which means it's enforceable by county zoning officials, right, for a zoning violation. So that is what we offer in a small package. If you would have any more questions for me on this project, I think I've covered all the highlights, but if you have anything else, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, sir. Can you explain the tree removal? And I do appreciate that there's a focus on especially the older trees that are there. That's just, it takes a long time to get a 100-year-old oak. So losing those features are sad to me. But tell me a little bit about the enforcement mechanism as far as if a homeowner decides, I don't want some of those scrub trees that are in my 50 feet backyard zone, and I'm going to take some out. They're going to have 2 to replace.
Myself at the same time to help take on to this, is that all right?
Sure.
Jesse Rognes.
Okay, thank you.
12509 Fulton, Indianola. And just to answer that question a little bit too, I've done a similar concept, the conservation concept in Ankeny, and we do directional boring as well to save the trees. So a lot of our pipe installation is done through a no-dig process. And really spending time up front plotting out exactly where the trees are that have real significance. But my point, I guess, of all of this is, and being responsible with the trees, and I am someone who likes to conserve trees and look at different methods of construction, is right now, as the landowner, I could go in and clear cut that whole property. And there's nothing that tells me I can't. And that's not where I want to go. I'm trying to put extra things in to save all these trees. And if for some reason there is a sick or dead tree or a tree in the way of construction, that the person buying this lot knows up front before they ever buy it, they have to follow these guidelines. And it's written right into our covenants that.
Okay, so it's
that-
in the covenants
Okay,
or
covenants.
HOA.
Yeah, it'll, right,
Okay.
and they would have to do these and follow these things. I mean, that will protect everybody in that development, it will protect the winery, which is a big push on why I'm trying to get this through, is because I purchased a failing business, and I'm trying to revive it. And I have, some remodeling that hopefully you guys will be seeing come through for that soon as well, that they're working on. But some of that hinges on getting this through as well, but also protecting the rest of the neighbors, you know, so by keeping all them buffers and requiring people to keep planting trees, you know, it's gonna, keep their view the same or better than it is right now, is kind of the goal. You know, and then like he said, with the construction practices of trying to do the centralized sewer system and a lot of the directional boring and trying to impact that ground as little as possible.
No, I know we don't know each other, Jesse, but I'm glad that you're here and I look forward to getting to know you. But I think we're on the same page on that. It's just, and you're 100% right. You have the ability right now to dispose of your property however in the world you want to. If you're not coming for a rezoning, it's yours. And if you wanted to have a dirt bike track there and clear cut it all,
Well,
I'm not
I don't-
advising that. I know you don't.
No.
That won't go well with the winery.
There's a lot of back and forth.
I got it.
It came down to, you know, restrictions on trees, and the point I wanted to make is right now there aren't any. I'm actually implementing them.
I understand. I just wanted to know
There are
what.
some beautiful 100-year-old oaks, and
I understand. I just wanted to hear what the sort of the enforcement mechanism tied in with a covenant, and that satisfied my request.
Fantastic.
Are there other questions for these gentlemen
Yes.
from the board?
Well, while we're talking about trees, what size trees would you want to plant the grove with?
So let's say that a larger tree, 6 inches or larger goes down. We've, in the preliminary version, we're talking about 1.5 inch ball and burlap. So it does take a tree spade to plant it.
Okay.
So that gives it a little bit of an advantage to jump ahead. You know, not little saplings. I mean, we're talking a significant tree. It will take time to regrow them, of course, but ideally, we're looking to that 50-foot buffer. They will have so much space on that 2-acre lot. You know, most of our lots are well over 280 feet deep. So that back 50 feet, everyone knows that's where the boundary is. That's going to be enforceable through the covenants again, so.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. I also have a question about the centralized treatment plant. In our current land use plan, I know that it says that in the rural areas, we will not have a centralized. So would that be an exception we would have to make? In the preliminary plat? Okay. Okay, I just wanted to have that conversation. Okay, thanks. All right.
again, we're looking for an upgraded system, not the standard septic system that everybody knows and deals with. We're looking for something that's better than. These spaces create a great wetlands area for wildlife.
Yeah.
So there's other advantages to doing it.
Okay.
And that was kind of where, some of this stuff had started, with the actual city. And so she was saying that they're talking about these different systems. So it's probably an up and coming thing. And again, our land use plan is from 2002.
Right.
So I think there's been some changes in that area with the state, but I don't work in that area. So
Right.
I don't talk too much to it.
Right, I
But
got you.
do know there's been some things
Right.
changing in that area.
And just to let the public know that we don't expect our environmental health or our engineer to spend too much time with these, because if we do not approve the zoning, then that's going to be a moot issue. We don't want them spending their hours doing this. But I do want to have an idea of what's ahead if we should approve this. So, all right, thank you.
Just one other
Yeah.
quick question to really do our zoning. Do the roads meet our requirements, and are there any issues with what they plan to do?
They will have to, discuss more with Tim and the engineer's office. It is hard service from the highway to the entrance of that property. But if they are sorry, Jesse Johnson, 15347 Fulton Street, the blacktop ends at that stop sign. So if that traffic subdivision is going to Indianola at all, they have to go all the way down 150th, which is completely gravel. So it is not set up for lots of traffic. And even if that is 3 trips a day
Here,
on gravel.
why don't you come up?
Yeah, it's okay.
3 trips a day on gravel times 19 families. So it's not just this area that's being affected, it's every one of those homes that's all the way along there. It's not just that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't they have the ability to go out through,
They do.
to get back on
Yes,
Somerset
you
and?
can hop on Somerset and head over to 65, 69, but that's kind of not the straight shot. If you're gonna do that, you gotta look for town. Like, most of the traffic around there never goes over to the highway, not when 150 is the straight shot.
I'll just make a comment, and I appreciate that, and I get that. When we add more than 4 per 40 per our old rules, we do have a paving requirement, or we do have a blacktop requirement, because we want to have the option for people to utilize gravel less. Now, that said, that doesn't mean that every entrance or every road that goes to a development also then needs to be paved or brought up to that standard. Otherwise, we would have zero development, because the developers already believe it's quite punitive that, some counties probably would jump at the opportunity to have 20 homes and they don't have a paving requirement. We do for more than when you go beyond 4 for 40, but that doesn't also mean then that every road that conceivably would take you to that development also needs to be paved. You just need one. But I hear what you're saying. I get it. Okay.
And if anyone has any comments, come on up to the mic
Yep,
and
just
introduce yourself.
Say who you are,
Yep.
where you live,
'Cause we
and your
can't,
thoughts.
the recorder doesn't pick up, as well as those viewing online can't hear you and your comments. Hello.
Laura McIntosh, and I live over on Fairfax, 14522 Fairfax. My question is, if they make that blacktop, that's gonna be more cost for the other neighbors through that street on 150th, correct? Are we gonna end up having to pay for that? And then that's gonna be more upkeep too. So I guess that's what my point was, because we know blacktops don't hold up real well with a lot of traffic. And everyone wants to stop and realize that a lot of people like to drive around in the country, and they like to go and check out the Somerset and everything, because they hear so much. And then the hostas, we're gonna have a little more traffic than really meets the eye. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Mhm.
Good morning, my name's Mackenzie Cordum, and I live at 6373 150th Avenue, Indianola, Iowa. First, I want to start by letting you know that I appreciate the opportunity to address you this morning. I also want to preface my address by emphasizing my intent of highlighting areas where the proposed development directly conflicts the Warren County Land Use Plan and the RR1 zoning criteria. While I truly understand that there are plans to update these documents in the next couple of years, I'm hoping that you understand that as a citizen of this county, these documents and regulations are currently the only guidance and regulation available to myself. While my intent is to provide factual information directly from your zoning and land use documents throughout my address, I do also want to emphasize that this development proposal has a very emotional impact to our farm and family as well. This will no doubt impact our way of life. Our concerns very much echo the same concerns outlined in your Warren County zoning documentation. I have highlighted each of these conflicts with the Warren County Land Use Plan and the Warren County zoning requirement in depth in the documentation I submitted in advance. So will not plan to go through the entire documentation for the sake of time. Rather, I will provide highlights of our concerns and reasoning for opposing the development as currently proposed. First, the number of proposed lots. I'd like to reference page 271 of Chapter 41 of Title 5, Property and Land Use 41.04 RR1 District Regulations. The RR1 districts, rural residential districts, are intended and designed to provide for the development of very low density, single-family subdivisions in the agricultural areas of the county. It is the intent of this section to provide for such large lot development in accordance with the basic land use policies adopted by the Board of Supervisors regarding residential land use and the preservation of agricultural land. Next, the loss of hardwood timber and wildlife habitat. This concern is heavily cited throughout the Warren County Land Use Plan, as you may have seen in the documentation I submitted in advance. I will highlight a few areas. Page 14, hardwood timber, slow to grow but valued for use in product manufacture and construction, needs to be protected from clear cutting and premature harvesting activities related to land development, such as subdivision development. Such activities reduce a valuable resource, contribute to erosion, and endanger wildlife habitats for all animals. Page 39. Priorities, Goal 1.5, to protect and preserve sensitive natural resources, including floodplains, woodland areas, wetlands, and other sensitive natural areas. Policy 1.5.1, protect environmentally valuable land, including woodlands, wetlands, stream banks, and wildlife and vegetative habitat areas from inappropriate development. Pages 46 through 47, key issues, conservation and resources. Floodplains, natural areas such as rivers, streams, wetlands, plant and wildlife habitats, woodlands, and the quality of groundwater and air are valuable to the physical and economic character of the county. The protection of these resources is a county priority. And last, page 47, rural area goals and policies. Goal 3.3, to protect sensitive natural resources, including floodplains, heavily forested areas, steep slopes, wetlands, and other areas. And policy 3.3.2, to protect environmentally valuable land, including woodlands, steep slopes, wetlands, stream banks, and wildlife habitat areas from inappropriate development. That leads me into our next concern, which is the development of steep slopes. Page 12 of the Warren County, Iowa Master Plan for Future Land Use, Growth, and Development. Soils located along moderately steep slopes, 8 to 15%, have moderate limitations and may be developed for urban uses, taking into consideration the erosion and stability hazards of such soils. Slopes that exceed 15% pose greater limitations for development. Slopes that exceed 25% are unsuitable for the most development, while slopes of less than 5% tend to be subject to wetness due to slow drainage. Septic tank drain fields should be constructed where slopes are less than 3%. My next concern is wastewater treatment. Page 46 through 47, key issues, water and wastewater. There will be only limited development in the rural area. Therefore, there will not be a need for centralized wastewater systems. Rural development may use existing rural water supplies or well water. Traffic is our next concern. In conjunction with the RR1 zoning criteria, page 274 of Chapter 41 of Title 5, Property and Land Use, we are interested in the required evidence that existing roads and bridges providing access to the proposed district are adequate to serve any proposed development. And our last but certainly not least concern is the transition of ag land into development. This concern is also highlighted throughout the land use plan, but I will pull out a couple of highlights. Page 46 through 47. Rural residential development often interferes with normal farm practices and increases pressure for premature conversion of farms and farmland. From a fiscal standpoint, revenues are increased, but service costs, primarily associated with road construction and maintenance, typically exceed revenue gains, resulting in deficit spending for all but the most expensive rural homes. In summary, I'd like to emphasize that our concerns as next-door neighbors to the proposed development very much align with the concerns highlighted throughout the current Warren County zoning documentation. Also, per recommendation, I have brought signatures of additional folks from our area who are also against the development as currently proposed. These are all folks who either live or farm within a 1.5-mile radius of the proposed development. We felt it was important to ensure folks signing were within a small radius that would truly be impacted. Some of these folks are unable to attend today's meeting due to work or business reasons. I want to thank you for your time and consideration of my address, and hope that you take this opportunity to consider and balance the importance of this decision and the lasting impacts.
Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Is there anyone else here who'd like to speak?
Casey Cordum, 6373 150th Avenue, Indianola. Good morning. I'd like to thank you again for the opportunity to speak. While I respect the owner's ability to make use of this unique property, I just wanted to point out a couple other things that have been brought up. Have any of you had a chance to go out and look at the property with your own eyes?
Yes, I did.
So I think included in your packet, but as a certified crop advisor in the state of Iowa, I have access to surety mapping system, looks at all soil types for any ag land. So if you look at that, I gave all my copies away, but 58% of that is a 14 to 18% slope, which goes against the land use plan. And another 24% is a 9 to 14% slope. I'm not a house builder, but I don't think those slopes really line up to that. And I respected, they're trying to minimally clear the timber, but I still think with the roads and the amount of houses, we're still going to clear a pretty good portion of those trees. I don't see how we don't. Not to mention the changing the grade. Anywhere where you change the grade, you usually have to change to take down trees. And an avid hunter and outdoorsman, I hate to see the loss of habitat as I watch deer from my front porch every day. While they understand that this county is prime for growth, there's better places and time for this development. This is a timber. Also, has not been mentioned, Mid-American Energy owns a 50-foot easement that goes through my property and this, as well as this property, that there would be no change of grade and development on 50 feet directly under the power line. So, in conclusion, to my points, and others was brought up as well, is I don't know that this property needs to be rezoned for an R1 district, and I hope you consider that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kayla, is there anyone online as well? Anyone else in the room that haven't spoken yet that would like to? Is there anyone who would like to speak again and maybe address some of the concerns that were heard today?
Again, good morning, Honorable Chair, members of the commission, or board, I apologize. I was trying to write down those things really quickly. I believe we've covered those. Large lots or low density is defined by your ordinance. It's not defined by me. That is defined by 2-acre lots or larger for single-family residences. The woodlands that we discussed, again, we are trying to save as many trees as we can. You've seen our first development. I think a lot of these issues that are of concern, we will address at the preliminary plat phase in more detail. I can't give you exact details because we haven't gone through all the design yet. We are not taking any of the ag, so all the vineyard is staying in place. This is solely within the wooded area. Secondarily, we also expect if you're gonna build a 2-acre lot with a paved road, we're expecting, at least from our real estate team, $1 million+ homes, at least. I know I grew up on a farm, on a gravel road. I never want to see dust again. That's just me personally. gets on your clothes, you get out of the car, especially the muddy days with the lime that they use, it gets stuck on your clothes. Not saying I don't drive on gravel roads, I said I just prefer not to. So we anticipate that's the route. If you look at the county traffic maps, that is the principally traveled route. From that area, people get to hard surfaces typically. The wastewater issue. Again, that will be addressed at the pre-plat. Our system does discharge to create a wetland type area. Again, we are pushing for a conservation design, which means narrow impact on those roads. So we tighten those up. That's the other reason we went to private streets, because then I do not need to dedicate a wider right-of-way, so that we can meander that street. Again, we're following, how do I want to explain it? There's 2 ridges on that property. So the roadways that you see follow those ridges. We're trying to stay away from the steeper locations, because I know very well what happens when you disturb a steep slope. You will chase it for a while. So that's what we've looked at preliminarily. On the wastewater, additionally, we have implemented systems. You can have individual systems that collect and treat to a secondary system. So instead of having a larger one location treatment septic tank on your property, you can do a larger one, and that's what we're proposing, because the footprint is much smaller. We have done this in other locations. You can have your own septic on your own site, which is your primary treatment, and then dump into a secondary system to go towards a secondary treatment. And then it's not considered a centralized, but then you're getting into technicalities. We don't want to, we'll work it out with the DNR, because the DNR will regulate the system. This will not be a county will not be a county health regulated system. This would be a DNR regulated system, which means we're turning reports in at the beginning at monthly intervals with water quality sent off to the either Iowa City Labs or Ecolab for testing.
And that's during just construction, correct?
No, that is perpetual. It
Really?
starts off very aggressive every month to make sure your system is operational.
Okay.
Then it goes, if you're doing a good job, it goes to semi-annual, and then it goes to annual inspections.
Okay.
As long as you can prove that your system is operating properly.
All right, thank you.
And then the Mid-American Energy easement, we have that's always one of the first things we do is we look at the abstracts, the easements, anything that else that would affect this property. And that is accounted for in our layout. We do not intend to change the grade by much. We're very familiar and we have a good relationship with Mid-American Energy and their design team when we work around their equipment. I think I covered all the points. If you'd have any other questions for me, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
You might have missed one on the corn suitability rating in egg ground, but it looks to me like the surety map, CRS 234.1, it's not tillable, it's scrub ground.
Right.
That,
That's why
that at least can't, but you didn't mention, but it just,
the timber is there, right? The vineyard operates in those areas, and that will be a part of our plat, because we're looking to do the site plan to expand that, or, update that facility. But we're looking to keep all of the ag as ag.
I think a couple of the folks that spoke did discuss the slopes, and it looks like a good chunk of it's 9 to 14, at least 10 acres here, and some of it's even a little more. That 65 E3 looks a little more. And I know that there's, I don't know because I've not walked it, but I anticipate there's ridge lines, the two where you're kind of running the highway or the road, not highway, the road. But what about the actual building lots is 9 to 14, is that a challenge? Is that,
More than likely, these will all be walkout basements, because that's what that slope allows for. A 14% grade over So let's see, you'd drop roughly 7 feet and 50 if your house was 50 feet deep, which makes then ideally, again, our goal is, as trees are taken out, when the architectural team goes, most of them, we expect to have architects and work around trees in these conservation developments that we've done. So we identify trees. If you take that one out, that's gonna cost you, right? We wanna save that one. So they'll shape the home around it. They're very good and very talented architects to make it blend into what the property is. I can give you an example of what a 16% slope is. If you've pulled into any parking ramp that's tucked under a building, those are typically 16%. If you go to Chicago, Chicago allows 24%, which those feel a little bit steeper when you tuck underneath that building when you go to park. But I'm trying to give you a visual of what that is. A 12% slope is allowed on a handicap ramp for a certain distance. If that gives you also a visual of the steepness. I'm just trying to give you some visuals on that. Ideally, we're staying away from those as we develop. Again, when we get into the preliminary plat, I can address these so much better, but the zoning's always our first step. And then there's always additional checks and balances as we go through the process, where I think we can answer questions to a much more satisfactory level than I'm able to today. Because otherwise I'm spending his money before I know I can
Right.
do things, so not fair to Jesse at that point, so
Got it. Okay, thank you.
thank you very much.
Yes.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak or speak again? Where are we at? I know that it's not at preliminary plat time, so I don't anticipate that our engineers has spent a lot of time on this. Is there any early indication on David's thoughts about the interior roads, after the Somerset paving to the blacktop in? Have you heard from David on those things yet?
A couple weeks ago, I did talk with Dave, and we did possibly mention the blacktop, that it might need another overlay. I don't know if he spoke with you about that, so that might be a possibility, just overlay it again, so it might withhold, more traffic on the road. So I know that is, did he mention that to you as well?
Vaguely, he did. Typically, when we're going into a construction site, if we, I anticipate we'll cause some issues, right? Some of the road asphalt doesn't hold up as well, it's older. Any damage we cause, we are charged with repairing that. So many times you'll see a nice new fresh asphalt coat on once we're done doing all the big construction, if that makes sense.
Okay. All right, we're still in public hearing. Is there any other comments? Yeah, come on up, state your name and address and.
Kelly Backerman, 14522 Fairfax Street. I'd just like to make a comment. Right now, we've got a big chunk of unmolested timber, and those are getting fewer and fewer. And we're gonna destroy it and put up a bunch of houses. That's why pretty soon we're not gonna have any of this around. This timber is big trees, it's secluded, we've got all kinds of wildlife. I just hate to see this stuff disappear. Just because you have a right to do something doesn't make it right to do it, so that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Jesse Johnson again. The other thing to consider that has been part of my husband's and my thought process is we left Des Moines to move down here, to be in the country, to go outside in our boxer shorts letting the dogs out, because it happens, and the balloons fly over, and it's bad. Anyway, we moved here for that specific life experience. We made that choice. And I have to wonder if they're very researched, they're very intelligent. Do these people who are buying $1 million home, do they understand there's gonna be gunfire right next to you? There's gonna be somebody out there going over the hill and going fishing in the river that goes behind there.
There's a way of life that we made a $500,000 decision to eject from Des Moines, to come down here for this. And I don't want that to be lost in the zone, in the rezoning. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, can I hear from zoning one more time? I did have one other question for you. Can you procedurally go through there was 2 meetings on it?
What was that?
Was there 2 meetings for rezoning and it got tabled
Yes,
once?
there was 2 meetings.
And then
They
they'll-
tabled it back on May 9th. They wanted more information from environmental health and engineering. We came back, basically, like we've said, this is a rezoning. They don't have more information because if they don't get the rezoning, they don't want to spend the money. I'm not saying they don't want to spend the money, but
No, right.
it is a lot of money for them to create more of a developmental, preliminary plat for you and for the zoning commission.
Were all 5 members present for that one?
No, they were not. There was only 3 members present. On the first one, yes. All 5 members were there. The second one, no. There was only 3.
Have the 2 members that weren't at the second meeting, have they had an opportunity to state their thoughts on it one way or the other?
They did not.
That's all I had. And it's zoning's recommendation to rezone it?
Our recommendation, we feel it is a good plan at this time. We understand that there's some things that need to come up, but those will be handled at the preliminary plat. So we understand there's the environmental side, we understand the engineering side. I believe Wally and Jesse, they are trying to work with the public and neighbors out there and, creating some buffers, for the neighbors and the community out there.
Yeah, it's still open.
Yep.
Steve Craig, 15211 Fairfax Street, Indianola, Iowa. I've got some concerns about the traffic for the going around the farm machinery and stuff. I do some haying around for some of the other neighbors, and there's more and more people that have small patches that don't want to do their own haying, and they have somebody like me to custom do it. And a lot of times I'm going to Vail or something on Sunday afternoon, and there's all kinds of traffic flying by on Somerset Road. And also the farmers around there that have livestock, or the Iowa fencing laws require the neighbors to, you're responsible for half the fence on your property, and the neighbor's required to fence the other half. And with the little patches of parcels of land, you're going to have, I realize there's a buffer strip around it, but that fence is going to have to be strong enough to keep cattle in, and maybe somebody's got goats, he's going to have woven wire or whatever, but that needs to be addressed before, you throw up a couple of fence posts and 2 strands of barbed wire or whatever to try to keep animals in, and have them running through 20 people's backyards. But and it's hard enough to keep neighbors to fencing around as it is now. So that's all I got to say, I guess.
All right. Thank you.
I may respond to that. At our public meeting, we agreed to put it in a welded wire fence to keep other animals out, because we do not want livestock chewing on grapes. Not that they would, but I've known goats to chew on it just about, just about anything, at least on our property. So, and they're escape artists extraordinaire. So, if besides that, if you have any other questions for me, I'd be happy to answer. I just wanted to make sure that we are proposing to put that would be part of our plan. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, last call for real this time. Okay.
Janet Crane, 15211 Fairfax Street. I kind of agree with some of the ladies about 150th Street. If you have kids in school, you're not going to go to Somerset and hit the highway. You're going to just go 150th all the way. So that's kind of a concern. And if you have kids in sports or anything, I mean, you could be 5 or 6 times a day, depending on how many kids you have. So that's just something to consider too. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, I'll make a motion to end our public hearing.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, at this stage, where is the board on rezoning?
Okay. I think I'd like to go through some of the citizens' concerns about the development. The transition of ag land into development, Jesse's right. He does own that land. He can do what he wants. We just can't help that process, other than the only sure way is to purchase it yourself. I do have concerns with the 19 lots. The size of the lots are much larger than in town, but my concerns are with the slope of the land and the building the houses on them. I would like to see fewer lots and larger lots. The loss of timber and wildlife, I think, would be impacted less if it was a larger lot as well. I understand the traffic impacts that you raise. I live out in the country. I live on gravel. I live on a corner of 2 gravel roads, and I understand the dust. I understand traffic. My road is what's called a farm to market road, so it's heavily traveled. I'm not as concerned with traffic. Our roads are meant to be heavily trafficked. The amount of rock that we put on them every year, we maintain them well, and as far as the paving it, we also have it on the developer that he will be taking care of any of the problems that occur to that area. I want to move on to the required evidence. We don't need any further evidence in rezoning at this point. The centralized wastewater treatment. We do have an outdated land use plan. You are aware of that. And the technology and centralized wastewater treatment plans have been improved and would be necessary. And I did ask you about their sewer treatment, and you had addressed it in your comments, that it's actually a secondary system. So each home would have their own septic, and then this would just be a backup. It can be, okay. Okay. And I really like the aggressive reporting that has. And this is my biggest concern, and it has kind of come up here, but because I live out in the rural area as well, it's the type of neighbors that you have and that you're developing in this area. Working class citizens, like myself, you are going to bring a different class who would be very good customers to these businesses that you have and these farms. But I do worry about the lifestyle and the changing of it, I think it would greatly improve your property values. But my concern is more about the community that we would have out there. So those are some of my concerns. Oh, well, one more. And we talked about the sloping. I would really like to see larger lots and fewer, so.
I agree with Supervisor McIntyre's presentation about the concerns. I am typically pro-development and pro-growth, and I'm a little concerned with our government telling somebody what to do with their land. But these are valid concerns, and I think the answer to this is to work with the neighbors and try to, and I think you are doing that. I think you've been very highly communicative to them, and you're trying to work out, a middle ground. But the larger lot, less dense, seems to be something that in my mind, seems to be a solution here. But I'd like to go out and take a look at the land. I'm a visual person. I haven't done that yet, and I apologize, but I'd like to come out and visit and take a look. But anything the people can do relative to the designer and the owner and the developer to accommodate the neighbors and work as hard as you can to, because these are valid concerns. They have a way of life. And opposing letting people do with what they want with their land is letting the neighbors live the way they want to live. So this is not new to the Board of Supervisors. We get to these pretty frequently, and these arguments seem to be consistent. And as we develop our land use plan in the future and we try to understand what kind of county we're going to be, this is all part of our strategic planning and something we think about a lot. But I appreciate the professionalism of the designer and Jesse and you guys coming to this meeting. We don't get that. These projects die pretty quickly when you don't have the professionals and the attitudes that you have. So it's, in my mind, it's a tough one. But I think the solution is if we could look at a plot with 10 or 12 lots, or we could figure out a way to reach a middle ground. If the neighbors and the owners could do that, that would be ideal. I don't like government deciding. I really don't like us sitting here and having to decide the futures of the families and what you do with your land. It's difficult. It's what it comes down to a lot. But if you can work it out on your own, something that the neighbors could really enjoy and like, that would be the best scenario, if it's possible. So those are my thoughts for now.
All right. I did get a chance to speak with the Cordums in advance Thursday. I spoke with zoning. I had an opportunity to read the file. I think part of the issue is that we've allocated dollars to rework on our ordinance and master plan, and the rubber sort of meets the road because folks have to make decisions off of what we have. And so I'm probably a little contrary to the board. I do understand the neighbors' concerns. I understand them very, very well. But low-density housing in our R1 is defined as 2 acres. Now, should it be 2 acres is a separate question. I think my term ends at the end of the year, so I'm not going to be able to make that call. But I do hope that the county looks at that aspect, and perhaps Warren County looks at 4 acres or 5 acres for the definition of low density. But at this point, that's not what we have. So what we have is 2 acres, and I have I think it's nice. I live in Norwalk and on a third of an acre, and it's a pretty good sized lot. And we built a 2-story instead of a ranch, so the footprint's a little bit smaller. But 2 acres is actually not the smallest thing in the world. But should it be 4 or 5? Perhaps. And would that get you to a smaller number of lots? It certainly would. But that's not what they're looking at. What I see here is, a person somewhat newer to the community who bought a struggling business that was losing probably money hand over fist, and probably with the anticipation that to make that winery go, some development and some payback needs to occur with this. And if that doesn't happen, that's going to be probably problematic for the winery. And so there's a lot of competing interests here. What I think I hear the board saying is that it would be nice if everyone could go along to get along, and buffers and trees made neighbors happy. But at the end of the day, I still am cognizant that, there's one owner to this 60-some acres, and it's not the neighbors. It's Jesse. I do appreciate very, very much that there's a conservation design. That's not something everyone's doing. I think that that's something, again, that the board should look at. For if you're taking out X number of trees, you're replacing it, and stick it on the developer. You'll get less development, but you'll have more trees, and that's probably a much better way for Warren County to go forward. But they've been proactive with that. They've added a berm, buffers, to try to make it the least inconvenient for neighbors as possible. They've also have a plan for if you take out trees, it'll be in the covenants. Those are things that I would like to see on a lot of developments. And so I feel like they are moving that forward. I do have some concern with the slopes. I think that's viable. I do think that the corn suitability rating here is probably some of the lowest ground in the county, honestly. I mean, you're not growing a whole lot of corn at 34.1, even if you had the trees gone. Now, he could do that. He could come in there and clear cut every single tree on that 60 acres and plant it to corn. He's going to get a terrible yield on it. It's highly erodible soil. It wouldn't be the best and highest use of the property. So my point is, I don't love 2-acre lots. It's what we have right now. I think the board needs to change that going forward. I think that'll stave off some problems. I'm not as concerned on the traffic, but I do hear from the neighbors, because you're right. If I lived there and had a high school kid, this is all Indianola School District, and my kid was playing softball or baseball or something, the kid's probably has a kid's car. So it's not dad's Corvette or something that doesn't want to get rock chips. Kid's going to take his truck or beater on the gravel roads, whatever's fastest. So yeah, there's going to be more use on that. I get that. But I think a lot of those folks, if you're buying a 2-acre lot on pavement close to Des Moines, maybe you work in Des Moines, maybe you work in Norwalk or Indianola or Carlisle, my guess is that most of the adults are going to be taking paved roads. I know that my spouse wouldn't drive on gravel for the fun of it. I would be curious about the road off of Somerset, what sort of overlay that would need. But overall, I feel like the developer hit most of the high points on above and beyond. I do hear from the neighbors, and I appreciate those concerns, but I'm just saying, at this point, with where we're at, I would be supportive of doing the rezone. So, but I am one of 3, and I'm not positive where the board is at. So, I mean, I can make a motion to rezone it, but I don't get the feeling that that's gonna happen unless Darren or Crystal are interested. I think a lot of this gets squared away in the preliminary plat zone. I mean, that's where some of those concerns get better fleshed out.
Right.
I understand. Well, then we'll find out where the board's at, I guess. I am going to make a motion to rezone it. I'm not confident that that's gonna pass, but I do think that some of those things can be ironed out at final plat, and that's when our engineer would get involved, DNR would be more involved. Some of those lots might get shrunk down, it might not be 19, it might be 16 or 15, I don't know, but it's not gonna go forward at all, absent that. So I will make a motion to rezone it from RR1 to, excuse me, A1 to RR1 per the proposal.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board? I want to make sure everyone understands what that means. That means that it would get rezoned and it would be moving forward. But that means that it's going down that path. So
It allows for the professionals to dive into some of these concerns a little deeper. It doesn't mean that this development is green lighted to happen.
Right.
I'll let zoning or legal address your question.
Yeah, well, it's a question.
I look at it as we have control at this point going forward if we were to rezone it. If we don't rezone it, he could tear down all the timber and do whatever. So it just, the way that I look at it.
Well, it means that it's moving down the path towards development is what it means.
Right.
But there could be some hiccups in the road. The DNR or others or environmental health could have some issues. David could have some issues on the road off of Somerset that, you know, might be prohibitive. But that's what it means there. It means that there'd be a shot that there'd be the homes there.
We have to approve a final plot, correct?
Yes, and that hasn't even happened, so.
So that means that we get another look at this. That has to happen
Yeah.
before the project is actually,
Absolutely.
you know, green lighted,
Yep.
and that happens. So this gives everybody an opportunity to make the neighbors happy, to move the questions further down the road, to get the professional opinions. All that has to happen before final plotting, before the project is actually 100% approved.
all the work they've done prior to even getting it approved for rezoning. I mean, to me, that shows good faith on their part, that they've already gone to these, you know, they've had a neighborhood meeting, they met with the group after the meeting last time. I mean, they're doing things in good faith that really aren't required for the rezoning, that we like to see more growth like this, because there's a say from zoning, there's a say from the environmental health office, there's say from the engineer's office. When you just start doing lots of survey in the ag district, there's no zoning control over any of that. And then you have people come back and say, you know, we have a problem with this, or that there's covenants on it. That's just kind of the background of why we would be supportive of this as an office and staff.
Right.
A lot of it, like Don says, this is just rezoning a lot of it.
we have in the past have people who are looking at purchasing land come to us and say, could this be rezoned? And go ahead and have it rezoned so that they will know whether it's a good investment or not. And just to kind of explain a little bit more about what Lindsay is talking about is that it's important to have someone come in and professionally design. It takes a lot of money, and it is an upfront cost. And trying to work with homeowners around and property owners is very difficult, but it has been something that this property owner developer is doing on your behalf. So, I mean, we've seen people come in and not have anybody at all and try to work with this. So I do appreciate that, but I also appreciate the fact that you took the time to come here to express how important this is to your life and how this is going to impact you.
I'm just gonna add too, you know, in the day when Somerset Winery was really thriving, it brought a lot of people into Warren County and into that neighborhood. I know the Cordums have a bit, you know, they have flowers and pumpkins and gourds, and they just had a big peach pickup. They bring a lot to the area. There's Edge of the Woods Raspberry Farm or Berry Farm out there, Ahasta Farm. There's a lot of stuff that happens in that little bit of the area that brings people to, and I really think, just my thoughts, even some of those people that will be building would be excited to support what's around them. You know, it's kind of a little farmer's market area in a way, you know, and the Somerset Winery's always been a big part of that. So
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion from the board? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, Jesse.
Well, let's rescind that and
Okay,
Yeah.
let me redo it.
do we have to rescind that? The one that we
Can I just make a
passed?
friendly amendment to it and vote on that? Okay, okay. I'll make another
Another
motion to rezone the property at issue and waive second and third. Do I have a second?
Second, and also to include the restriction on the buffer, yes.
Okay. Motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, Don, we had a 10:30 closed meeting. Do you want me to jump to that, or do you want me to do the public hearing that's set? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Also, I'm in the construction field, and I'm always looking for new technologies, and always aware of a new type of paving for rural areas that I've come up with and bringing to this area, and I've started doing it in a few other areas, so I'd love to share with you guys in the future, show you more about what it is. It's lower impact, greener, stronger than concrete, stronger than asphalt.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
And I live on a gravel road, so I'd love to see it.
All right, our next one is public hearing regarding review of final plat for Warren Wonder Estate submitted by Larry Hughes and Terra Tender, Inc. P.O. Box 305, Norwalk, Iowa 50211. I'll make a motion to go into public hearing.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are in public hearing. Good morning.
Okay, Warren County Wonder, was submitted by Larry Hughes, Post Office Box 305, Norwalk, Iowa 50211. The commission held their first public hearing of the final plat of Warren Wonder on October 11th, 2021. Warren Wonder was tabled on October 11th, 2021 by the commission per recommendation by Director Lindsay Boffman, as some of the items were not complete according to the final checklist. On April 11th, 2022, Director Lindsay Boffman again asked for them to table this item as some of the items were still outstanding. A public hearing was held on June 14th, 2022 by the Zoning Commission. The Zoning Department received confirmation from Assistant County Engineer Tim Hill that the roadway is now approved per their specification. The Zoning Office has then recommended approval. A motion was made by Laxton to recommend approval of Warren Wonder Estates final plat to the Board of Supervisors. A roll call was taken. Laxton, aye. Ominous, aye. Kane, aye.
Okay, we are in public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this? Good morning, Larry.
Good morning. Larry Hughes, 208 East First Street, Ackworth, Iowa. This is a 58 acres. We will have 15 lots. That's an average of 3.86 acres. I was encouraged by what I heard earlier this morning. The road is in. It's been approved by the county engineer. We have interest in people wanting to know size, prices, those kind of things, and I've kind of backed off on doing anything pricing wise till we've had this hearing. I would request that the board waive the paving thing on the interior road. We do have a paved road out front on R57, and we've got about 6 to 7 inches of 4-inch stone down, and then 3 inches of 1-inch rock with fine. So that's 10 inches of not paving, but road. So I ask for your approval of Warren Wonder. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, I'd just like to say that I know that zoning has helped you along, and anything that you have ever asked, that you were asked to do, you have done, and I do appreciate that very much. Makes my decision a lot easier.
Thank you, Supervisor McIntyre.
Is there going to be a homeowners association for this?
Yes, there will be a homeowner association.
So all the interior maintenance on the roads, all interior will be
They would
handled by
have
them and
fees
not
to
by the
cover
county?
road maintenance, yes.
Okay. I don't have any questions. Darren, do you have any questions?
I don't have
for
any.
Mr. Hughes? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak on this? Is there anyone online?
I'll make a motion to go out of closed session.
Second. Roll call,
Oh,
please.
sorry, I'm sorry. Out of public hearing.
There you go. We weren't enclosed. It's open to the public. It's the
Yes.
exact opposite
I
of
know.
a public hearing. One end of the spectrum to the other.
Yep.
All right, we're a motion to exit our public hearing. I've seconded it. Roll call vote, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Can I hear from zoning one last time on your recommendation was approval? Is that correct? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the rezoning for Wonder Estates. Is that right?
Warren Wonder.
Okay. And waive second and third, yes, please.
Second.
Yeah. Well, my binder was actually upside down, so I didn't have it in front of me. Let's try it again. All right. I'll make a motion to approve the final plat for Warren Wonder Estates submitted by Larry Hughes and waive the second and third reading.
Second.
Discussion from the board. Roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Seeing as we have supervisors report, public input, and next meeting date, I know that we have a closed session that was to start at 10:30, but we're going to finish up this meeting first, and then we'll jump into the closed session.
Thank
Thank you, Larry.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, supervisors report. Would anyone like to go first?
I'll go first. Okay, so our courthouse and jail has opened. I was asked, as well as other members of the board and other users in the building, to give individual tours, and then at the open house and dedication. Those are fun, and my own personal opportunity to see the progress of the building. So I want to thank all of those who took the opportunity to be a part of your building. I met with Ben Reeves, the Indianola city manager, very well received, and we look forward to further cooperation with Indianola and the board. Along with our specials and closed sessions, the board was able to canvass the primary election. Also, I attended a Warren County Joint 911 Service Board meeting, an Aging Resources Board of Directors meeting, and I would urge anyone 60 and over to meet with nutrition for their farmers market vouchers. The courthouse and jail had their first security meeting since 2020. So what this meeting is it's about courthouse security. It's the security of the building, and of course we know that that building is going to be quite secure, but there were still some things to address, and it's been interesting to see over the years, from the old courthouse to the annex building to now this new building, how the problems are similar, but they're very different at the same time. Also met with Impact. We had a fiscal meeting. Met with Indianola Downtown Merchants Association by invitation, but I see that Darren is better suited for that meeting, so I'm going to turn that over to you after I send you an email about the meeting itself. And 911 Executive Board meeting. So thank you. That's my report for the last 4 weeks, actually.
Thank you, Karitza.
Yep.
Supervisor Heater?
I'm gonna pass.
I'll echo some of Crystal's thoughts as well. We had a number of special meetings, work sessions, some closed meetings. I think the highlight of the last few weeks was probably the courthouse dedication and the tours. It's unscientific, but I did get the genuine sense that folks that had not been in the building yet, but maybe had their first tour, it seemed as though that the folks that actually attended, visited, went through, had pretty positive remarks about the building itself. And I know that there's been some question, like, is it just a catchy name, the Justice Center? And why don't you just call it the courthouse or courthouse jail or whatever? But I think it's a good reminder that, really think about what's in that building. And what's in that building is the courts, clearly, because it is a courthouse, the jail, clearly, but also the sheriff's department, our jail staff, our dispatch, our E911, our EMS, probation, juvenile, court services, maintenance. Tech has a pretty good presence there, but it really is a combination of a lot of services all in one area, with some shell space in the basement. That's still open for future courtroom expansion if and when they ever need to grow. The courts have some dedicated space right now that is probably filling up with files, but digitalization can happen and 2 additional courtrooms can grow. And so my honest guess is that this county is not going to need to expand in any meaningful capacity for decades and decades, and that's a good thing.
Yep.
So thanks for those that came out. It was hot. I did read Miss Duncan's comments, and she said people were excited to get into the AC. I was one of those people. It was hot up there. Yes, I'm glad. Thanks to our health services for putting up some tents too. At least a few folks were able to not bake in the sun. But it was, thanks for that. It was good. Attended a HERDA meeting, various calls and discussions with a number of community electeds on just a couple of different topics. The last thing I'll point out is we had a meeting, and I don't think anyone was really here for it, but the public should know. So if you're watching, know this. In the last few years, this board has taken a real focused approach on one of the big cost factors that really matters to me, and I know it matters to my colleagues too, but it's with insurance premiums. So whether that's health insurance, or whether that's liability insurance for the county, or work comp insurance, not doing so has led to some pretty bad results from some other entities where premiums, they just have to pay them, and they go up and up a lot. But this board redid our health policy. We included an HSA. Our premium increase was 2 or 3%, where some, comparable counties increased double digits. That's a meaningful number. But the reason I'm bringing it to your attention today is because we had a meeting that involved our work comp premiums and our liability costs. And the board took a little different approach last year and decided, because our e-modifications were so low, that we had the ability to, if we didn't have a lot of work injuries here, that we would get some of a refund of premium. And I think it's about $50,000 or $55,000 of premiums are getting refunded back to Warren County. That's a big deal. And I think our rates stayed flat or decreased a little bit. But those are good things, and that's not every county, that's not every town. Most of these entities are paying a lot more than they did last year. Not Warren County. And part of that is because we've held safety meetings, we've worked with our broker, we were an HR, we explain to people how things work and how we can do things, and we try to do things that keep those costs down, and it's really working out. So I find that to be a big win, because $55,000 a year less over 10 years is a lot of money, and I think that's a good thing. So that's my report. That's what I got. Next up is public input. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual. No action will be taken on any comments due to the requirement of the open meetings laws, but we may do so in the future, and we have been known to do so in the future. Is there anyone from the public, either online or in the room, that would like to provide input? Seeing none, our next meeting date is going to be July 19. That's our evening meeting. It will be held here at 6 p.m., July 19, 2022. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.